Thank you so much. I'm very, very delighted to have you all here. Dear Gabriela, dear Secretary of the conference, dear ladies and gentlemen, participants, I need to share with you that we have here participants from 67 countries from all over the world. And I think we need a round of applause for that. So today, I would like to start with one quote from Kurt Vonnegut, American writer of German roots, who concluded the first chapter of his famous book, Breakfast of Champions, with the sentence, "We are healthy only to the extent that our ideas are human." Breakfast of Champions were published in 1973. The same year, Professor Kato of Japan's Waseda University unveiled the first humanoid robot, Wabot 1, which could clumsily grasp things with its hands, walk on two legs, look with cameras in its eyes, and forcibly communicate with humans in Japanese. The same year, 1973, Martin Cooper made the first mobile call. The Motorola prototype weighed 2 kilograms and was affectionately known as the Brick. And since 1973, relatively little time passed, but the changes have been drastic and far-reaching. Today, just over 50 years later, we use mobile phones and AI applications to manage our smartphones, to send emails, to manage our bank accounts, learn foreign languages, walk the streets of unknown cities just as locals, take photos, keep track of traffic, weather, and all kinds of information, make hands-free calls while driving, and so on and so on. A lot has changed in the last 50 years, not only in technology, but also in politics and popular culture, and much of what we do in our daily lives. However, nothing has changed in the ethics on which Vonnegut's sentence is based. Such ethics on which we can shape our intentions and actions is the first condition for our common future. When we talk today about the ethics of AI, we are on one hand creating the foundations, the value systems that will maintain the moral value of our actions not only today, but even decades later. On the other hand, we are speaking about a technology which is only really beginning its development and already shows signs of changing our lives in 1,000 ways, for better and for worse. My dear friend Gabriela says that in no other field is the ethical compass more important than in AI, because the world is changing at a pace not seen since the introduction of the printing press. And just 2 days ago, on the 3rd of February, it was exactly 556 years since the death of Johannes Gutenberg, whose invention was a turning point in the history of our civilization. Today, AI has access to vast amounts of human knowledge and collective memory. We have the extraordinary privilege and great opportunity, as well as responsibility, to be present at the beginning of the development of something so radically new that it raises fundamental questions about humanity. For the time, AI is still significant unknown, even for experts, not only politicians. But one thing is certain, however, AI is our welcome and useful assistant as long as our ideas are human. That is, as long as it enhances what is best in us humans. But what is that? The answer to this fundamental question, what makes us human, from Aristotle to now, is not clear-cut. Some believe that what keeps humans at the top of evolution is aggressiveness and cunning. I say it's cooperation and empathy. Others believe that our evolution is driven by selfishness and greed. I say it's competition and solidarity. Some believe that the greatest invention of mankind is gunpowder and the gun. I disagree. I say that our greatest invention are human rights. Some say that we should be afraid of AI and that we should stop its development. I disagree. I'm afraid of the person who controls weapons based on AI. Some argue that freedom of speech is absolute, and I reply that unrestricted freedom is the worst tyranny. I have no illusions that hate speech and violence on the internet will ever be eliminated, nor do I expect that we will be able to prevent the misuse of artificial intelligence altogether, because there has never been a great invention in whole history that has not been abused by humans alongside its beneficial use. However, this does not absolve us of our responsibility and our efforts to live up to the values to which we are committed. What's more, for the sake of the survival of our wider community, we have an extraordinary opportunity to live out our mission, our values, and our commitments always and everywhere. Our country, Slovenia, takes the UNESCO recommendations about AI seriously. Slovenia is also actively participating in the European Regulation of Artificial Intelligence, which is the first legislation of its kind in the world and will regulate not the technology, but the use of artificial intelligence and introduce safeguards according to the risk levels. Our country joined UNESCO in 1992, and we fully support our common core value, the power of education, which is the acquisition and transmission of knowledge. Knowledge, for us in Slovenia, is a core value, a prerequisite for development and the foundation of all our plans. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, AI tools are getting better and better every single day and will soon be an integral part of the most of our activities. We gathered here today and tomorrow. We have the responsibility, we have the motivation, the knowledge, and also the power to achieve what we have set out to do, to develop AI that works for the good of people, so that we can be more creative in freedom, so that the quality of life is higher for all of us, and so that we can keep our planet healthy. We know what we want, so we have all the conditions to make our common future what we want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, dear Emilia. And thank you all for being here. As she said, this is a fantastic setting. I'm seeing all the member states that are here, that are doing the readiness assessment. Welcome. I see our partners in the foundations. I see the partners in the academics, in the business sector. And I see a commonality of people that wants to do exactly what the minister said. Steer the development of these technologies in a way that it delivers for women, for women. That was a fantastic lapsus. Yes, for women. I see all the ministers, and I see Alessandra, our chair of the Women for Ethical AI. No, it needs to deliver for everybody, and we know this is the task at hand. And I really want to welcome another wonderful lady, our president of the General Conference, dear Ambassador Miculescu. We're going to have the DG Azulei is coming to meet with all of you. The Deputy Prime Minister is also coming. So Slovenia really has been a fantastic partner and host. We met together. We saw that we were sharing this view. And the whole question of the forum is that we are not going to be putting the emphasis on what scares us about these technologies. We're not going to be discussing existential threats. We're not going to be discussing black boxes. We're not going to be discussing machine learning and the fact that sometimes you don't know why the computer behaves the way it does. We are neither going to be just looking at the issues that the technology raises, because this is a societal conversation. We are going to be looking at how we steer the development of these wonderful technologies to deliver for us, for people. And we are also going to be looking into the how, and as Emma would say, the why, of this deployment of the technologies. This global forum, and I recognize also the Czech Republic that hosted us last year, is part of the whole infrastructure that UNESCO is putting together to implement the recommendation. We love global norms. We love global commitments. We prefer implementation. And the name of the game is implementation, implementation, implementation. We developed the readiness assessment, and this is still the only global instrument. Very proud about the European Union, very proud about the US executive order, the resolution that the US is presenting in the General Assembly, pretty much in line. All the regions in the world, Chile with the regional council, everybody's gathering into this converging view that we have the means and we have the tools to deliver better for people. And UNESCO is playing its part, as I said, with the readiness assessment, but we are also launching the observatory on ethical AI, the AI experts without borders, the Women for Ethical AI. We have, of course, education at the center. My colleague Stefania Giannini core to the fact of what do we do with ChatGPT in education. Here you will have two panels of my colleague Tofik Helasic, who is looking into how do we use these technologies in the judicial system, taking thousands of decisions, and if we don't do it ethically, we know what will be the outcome. And also the question of the platforms looking into the democratic processes that we are going to enter. Many partners here, as I mentioned, and therefore I want to also thank the European Commission, of course, the Japanese Cooperation Agency, the Development Bank in Latin America, the Patrick McGovern Foundation, Thomson Reuters Foundation, Alan Turing. It gets everybody into moving together, because I think this is the place to be and to really advance the better framing of these technologies. And let me tell you, since the launch of generative AI, almost a year and a half ago, everybody got more worried. And everyone was saying, is the recommendation fit for purpose? I think that it was a blessing in disguise, because it got leaders very worried, and when leaders worried, they do something. Secretary General of the UN established the advisory body, and we have many members of them here. And we know that the G20, we're working with Brazil on the question of how we tackle inequalities. The G7 is also framing the discussions, and you will be hearing from all of them. And therefore, I think that this is a question of advancing solutions together, because this is what we want. We want solutions. We don't want to continue talking about the threats that we have. And the truth of the matter is that even before ChatGPT, we knew that it was not only the pervasiveness of these technologies, but the speed. And the question is, how can we adapt to this changing environment? How our structures in the governments, how our structures in our minds, how our structures in the schools can adapt? Because the adaptation and the anticipation, it was really driving the change. And this is very important. 100 million users in few weeks. It was just mind-boggling. We know, for example, of the recent survey in the UK that 8 out of 10 teenagers use generative AI tools. So it's not a question of using or not. It's a question of how do we ensure that we do it in an ethical way that delivers for people, and how do we align it to address the challenges that we face. I'm very pleased to have the Global South present. Of course, I mentioned the G20, the G7, all the Global North. But at the end, we know that these are also highly concentrated technologies, and we need the Global South in this conversation. And I'm very glad that we are joined by many, many members of UNESCO that are gathering together also to deliver for good. And the core of the discussions today, and this is what we want to focus, because we want to extract very concrete learnings, is how do we enhance the capacities of governments to steer this technology. It's time to invest in governments' capacities, because, like it or not, governments frame and shape the direction of the market developments. There's no other sector. Of course, this is a pervasive sector, but all the sectors need to have these very clear framings. It's not only about regulation, it's policies, it's tools, it's incentives, it's subsidies. You call it, and you know better than us that we have many tools to steer the capacity, of course, hand in hand with the business sector, and that's why we also have the Business Council that DG Azulay will be launching today with Microsoft, Telefonica, Salesforce, and many others that are here with us today. We were very proud last year, the Oxford AI Insights recognized the recommendation as the major development, and particularly the Latin American Council, because we have these groups of countries getting together because they have similarities, and we are working also with Africa and with the GPI and many others. So I think a convergence of view, I see a convergence of willingness to drive the change for good. And this is the message that I want to leave with all of you. We are not powerless. It's not about whether we can control or not, it's whether we can really steer these technologies that are so amazingly good. And the sad thing is that because of all this news on the negative impacts, you and I will have talked, it's just amazing technologies. The kind of deliverables that they can bring to us humans is just great. And therefore, how do we ensure that in the 7 years that we have left to deliver on the SDGs, we bring the technologies with us to deliver for good? And this is part of the construction that we have in this wonderful place. And again, with big thanks to our Slovenian host. And I'm looking forward to learning with you and also to walk the talk with you. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, Mrs. Ramos and dear Minister, for setting the scene. We'll see Mrs. Ramos many times on stage in 2 days. So thank you, and all the best, and enjoy the conference, and enjoy Slovenia, because Slovenia is really a near perfect place to inspire groundbreaking invention based on human intelligence. Did you know that music was actually invented in today's Slovenia? In fact, prehistoric Neanderthals invented music here. An unusual musical instrument, which was neither a flute nor a whistle, was found in 1995 near the remains of a 50 to 60,000 year old Neanderthal cave in western Slovenia. It was made from a thigh bone of a young cave bear, into which the Slovenian Neanderthals had drilled 3 holes. It's not a coincidence, 3 holes, and used bone and stone tools to make a polished rim for the mouthpiece. It is the oldest instrument in the world, and it is on display in the National Museum in Ljubljana, just you to know. And now it's high time that we start with our first ministerial session on national governance of AI in focus, insights from UNESCO readiness assessment exercises and country experiences. I'm really glad to invite the participants of the first panel already on stage. So please take your seats on the stage, and I'm really happy to announce the moderator of the panel, Mr. Vilas Dar, a global expert on artificial intelligence policy and technology and philanthropy executive. He is the president and trustee of the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, a foundation which focuses on artificial intelligence and data solutions. In October 2023, Mr. Dar was appointed by United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to the UN High-Level Advisory Body on Artificial Intelligence. So, Mr. Dar, are you here? Yes. So, as the Slovenian Neanderthals would say, let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. What a great introduction. Thank you to the Minister, to ADG Ramos, for setting the stage for us this morning as we enter into our first panel. I think given the gravity of the moment and the situation, we have to start where every conversation around AI should start. For me, a story about drunken elephants. Let me tell you this story. I was recently in India for the meetings of the GPI, and we had many policy discussions. But the moment that stood out for me more than anything else was a small group of students who came forward to share with me what they had been doing around AI. You see, it turns out that elephants, like maybe some of us in the room, enjoy a tipple from time to time. They go into the forest and they find fermented fruits, and maybe they get a little tipsy. When they do, they often go out for an adventure, and unfortunately, sometimes what happens is they come up against human settlements. They find human rice fields, and in the middle of the night, they will often rampage and destroy the fields for subsistence farmers who are relying on those crops for their very livelihoods. For a long time, the response to this has been uniquely human. It's been to put people out at the edges of the fields with whistles, with lights, to watch for elephants coming and to try to get them to go away. But these young people came together and said, you know what, we have a better solution in mind. What if, using some low-cost cameras and the advancements in machine learning, we could actually put together an algorithmic model that sits on a Raspberry Pi that lets us distribute a number of these devices around these threatened rice fields, so that when an elephant having a perfectly fine night comes along, we have an early warning system. And then to use these algorithms to actually train a model for elephant deterrence using low-cost lights that today is deployed across hundreds of thousands of acres. What it means is many of the young people, often young boys and girls, who were asked to sit in the fields all night, often in such a way that when they went to school in the morning, they'd fall asleep as soon as they entered the classroom, now don't have to do that anymore. That now, these tools help us actually understand a threat to human livelihood, but also in a way that lets us more humanely interact with the animals around us, and builds a solution that can be deployed at massive scale, none of which required supercomputers or massive devices or any of the other things that we think are required for applications of AI, but really actually quite easy, quite human, quite personal. I wanted to start with that story because even as we enter into a conversation about the policies and regulations we'll use sometimes to limit the potential risks, I think it's important to start also from the soaring sense of imagination of what AI could represent for humanity. The potential to build solutions that sit where people live, address those moments of vulnerabilities at the front line, create new pathways for economic opportunity, make sure that that kid sitting in that classroom is fully focused and engaged, and figuring out how AI can help build a better society. You know, in my field, I, for decades now, have heard talk about ethical AI. And even today, we sometimes use that term. To me, it means something quite powerful. It doesn't mean a technology that's governed by ethics, but rather a journey we're all on to design an ethical and responsible society, one that's enabled by new technologies, including AI, but one where AI gives us an aperture to actually test and consider some fundamental assumptions about how we built the society that we have today, and more importantly, the one that we aspire to. With that framing in mind, I'm delighted to host this panel this morning, because this is not a journey that happens overnight. It's not a journey that happens because of buzzwords. It's not a journey that happens because we react to a single technological achievement, but rather happens because we come together in our forms of governance with our policymakers, with civil society, with the private sector as participants, to say, how do we engage in a journey to assess how ready we are for a transformation, to build shared platforms for common action, to share best practices from our learnings, and together, finally, design that society that we also aspire to. So in today's panel, we have together with us a collection of policymakers from around the world who will share where they are in their journeys to do exactly that. Some who have just begun to engage with the readiness assessment methodology, the tactical implementation of the UNESCO ethical principles. Others who have built dynamic and meaningful national level strategies that in many ways are shaping the global conversation. And those who are simply beginning with this tool to ask fundamental questions about what AI might mean for development, for growth, for policy. So with that, it's my delight to come to our first participant. And as I mentioned, Senegal has been an amazing early adopter of the readiness assessment methodology. And I'm just looking here across our very broad shades. There we go. Asetu, may I ask you, I had such a privilege to be with some of your colleagues at the general meetings of UNESCO in the fall and to hear about the incredible progress you've made in the deployment of these tools. I wonder if I might come to you first to share with us for a few minutes what that process has been. How is the RAM helping you achieve the balance between governing AI and ensuring that technological transformation is actually leading to new innovation?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to be here today.
Can we just maybe hand her the other microphone?
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here today to help to know how Senegal is dealing with AI. First, when we began, it was not for ethical aspect. It was really for innovation, how to help grow, how to help development. And we were all together to think about how AI can help, because we have a lot of people, young people, how to help for development, AI for good. We are searching for AI for good to solve problems. And we were approached by UNESCO and to mix the two aspects. How can AI can help for development? Then in aspect ethics. So we mixed all stakeholders together to know exactly how can we do such AI for good and to have ethical aspect. Then the RAM help us to have, the first thing is a reference, the base reference, because we have a strategy. The strategy is for us a way how to go through this technology. So first, we have 3 priorities. The first one is AI for good. No matter, this can be for to solve problems, because we have real problems. And 4 priorities: agriculture, inclusiveness, because we have a lot of linguistic barrier. The second one was about AI to be used for all of us. Then the other one is for innovation, culture, and environment. So we have 4 priorities for AI ethics. So this is where we put it in our strategy. We have a reference base, and now the next step will be to go to a big national consultation, because we are dealing for what something is not very usual in Senegal. They are using AI, but they didn't know if they are using it in the good way. So these articles help us to know exactly. And we don't have any regulation dealing with AI now in Senegal. There is no regulation. We have regulation for personal data and something else, but no. So that helps us to have a photography of what is available in Senegal and how can we go through this technology to have all information we need and how it can be possible. So I have 2 minutes. Is it the 2 minutes is?
Yeah, it is unfortunately up, but please finish your thought.
No. That is 1 hour, you know. No, it's okay. In the other one, I'll come back.
We'll come back to you, because I'd love to hear more.
Yes, it was interesting for us to, all together, all stakeholders, scientists, and SMS, ONG, to all together to think about how can we help Senegal to be more developed with AI. So it's my...
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to continue this, please. I want to continue this line of learning, Minister Echeverri, to come to you next, to hear a little bit about the Chilean experience. I know that you have been a leader in bringing together a regional set of actors, as well as really centering, I think, the interests of those who maybe are most vulnerable or most ready. Tell us how the RAM has helped you in bringing that conversation forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the invitation, and to the hosts, of course, and to everybody that is listening today. We started with AI several years ago. Our first national strategy was published in 2021. It seems like yesterday, but a lot has happened since then. And when we published the first one, it was centered mainly on creating capacities for artificial intelligence. This was prior to ChatGPT. The ethical questions we had at that point were really different. So we focused on creating capacities in computing and training people and research and so on. But then ChatGPT came along, and we realized, the experts realized, that a further discussion was needed, a discussion on what were the expectations, the fears, and also how, as a government, we could address those expectations and fears and create a framework that would allow for the proper development and deployment of artificial intelligence. We were in that process, and we realized UNESCO had already been doing something. And we entered the process of implementing the RAM. We were, I believe, the first country, Gabriela? Sí. We were the first country to do it. I was telling somebody yesterday I was hesitant at the beginning because starting a process like that could seem burdensome or a lot of work, right? But once we were in the process, I think the main realization was that it enabled us for two things. The first one, to generate a broad conversation with a specific framework. We managed to have open consultations. We were around the country talking with different people and just having a lot of participation around AI. And the second good aspect is that we ended up with a document that gives us a roadmap on how to move ahead, a roadmap that can also be compared to the process of other countries. And that is a tool for the design of public policy that is just really, really useful. And then finally, since we had a really good experience with that, we decided to move one step forward. And in October last year, with the collaboration of UNESCO and CAF, we created a council, not a council, a working group with different countries from Latin America and the Caribbean. So we can take this experience and share it and have this participation not only within the country, but also as a region.
Amazing, thank you. So here we have this vanguard of the first adopters of the readiness assessment methodology. I'd love to come to you, Mr. Dewey. I think, yes, there we go. Yes, wonderful. From Vietnam, you are about to implement the RAM, it sounds like. So I'd love to hear from you as you are kind of hearing these stories. What are your expectations? What do you think are the next steps? And how are you preparing for this next step in the process?
Well, thank you very much for the questions here. As you might know that Vietnam is an open country in a very dynamic region in ASEAN and next to China's, Korea, Japan's. I mean, like, it's very easy to adopt technology in Vietnam right now. So as long as ChatGPT appears, that's 1 month later, everyone start to use ChatGPTs over there. And of course, then we suffer very fast from the bad side, the bad effect of AI as well. It's very popular in Vietnam right now, where people use AI technology to, I mean, like, they hack Viber's account, WeChat account, and then they use AI technology to imitate your friends and your family member, and then start talking to you and asking for monies, and it happens every day right now. So, I mean, it's very easy to use the AI technology for bad purposes as well. So, I mean, it's our own need at first, I mean, to create legal frameworks and with own ethical aspects of AI system. So we believe that UNESCO recommendation can serve as a valuable frameworks for shaping AI system in Vietnam. In 2021, we have announced our national strategies for research, development, and application of artificial intelligence until the year 2030. And in these strategies, we set a strategic direction for establishing policy and laws, developing and applying AIs with focus on human-centric approaches. So we focused on how the AI would serve the citizens' need, how to use AI to manage all the environmental problems, stuff like that. And by aligning with these ethical perspectives, we can prioritize transparencies, accountabilities, and human rights in AI developments. And there are two things we have to consider to develop and deploy AIs in a balanced way. The first thing is how to balance within an enabling environments to allow explorations of new technologies, new applications, especially in healthcare, like whether you allow AI system to diagnose your disease and to help with new methods of curing your disease, and a safe, ethical environments for deploying AI applications for our citizens. And the second thing is how to balance being an AI consumer by deploying foreign AI application very fast and being an AI developer with domestic capacity buildings. So we hope that with UNESCO tools can help us to find the answers. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you. Minister Dixon, I'd like to come to you next. Please. In your role in the Jamaican Prime Minister's office, you are also preparing for this implementation. Tell us a little bit about what that preparation looks like.
Thank you, and I have to start by saying thank you to Slovenia for hosting this event. The hospitality has been wonderful so far, and I thank you very much for everything that you've done in putting this conference together. I was appointed into my role as Minister with responsibility for digital transformation just 8 months ago. And it was really because we felt we were behind as a country, and our Prime Minister wanted us to accelerate quite a bit. And AI is absolutely important, and I know in Jamaica there was a lot of fear around AI, but there's always fear around things that are new and that are different. And so one of the things I had to do initially was to go on radio and television quite a bit to note that with any technology or anything new, that there are always going to be good and bad. And what we have to do is to accentuate the good and try to mitigate against the bad areas of AI. And as we were doing that, I needed the help of UNESCO quite a bit because, you know, there's so many tools and there's so much research that's already been done that for me in taking on this role, I had to use a lot of UNESCO's tools. And one of the key things that was there was that UNESCO's underlying goal in relation to AI is really bringing the human into it and into its development and the development of policies. And that's very much aligned to our focus. And our focus is about technology as good. And that's very important, and technology for the good of our country and for our world. And so Jamaica was actually a part of UNESCO's intergovernmental negotiations on the recommendations. And we had an expert that worked on that, and he's now working with me in terms of our AI strategy going forward. But what we have been able to do is to have a AI task force. My time is almost up, wow. Have a AI task force. I went publicly and said, we're going to do an AI task force, and we're going to do this properly and have a strategy that's well thought through. And I had people actually write to me and say, I studied AI, people I'd never met, and I want to be a part of your task force. And so one of the key things was to make anyone who was an expert in the area feel like they could be considered to be a part of this task force. And we actually took people in. And so our task force has people from academia, private sector, and also our public sector regulators and also policymakers, and even our skills development team is there. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that we have 3 individuals under 30 on our AI task force, because this is technology for the future. We have to have those voices embedded. So our plan is to use the readiness tool, and it's already being used as a part of the work of the AI task force. And that's great when you have someone who worked with UNESCO on developing the recommendations being on the task force. And so we've said, you know, it has to be, the work has to be aligned. So even though we haven't done the readiness assessment yet, we're actually using it as a part of our task force.
Fantastic, thank you. I have many follow-up questions. We're going to come back to all of these. Thank you. I think next to our colleagues from Oman. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I wonder if you could share a bit about the unique vision that you might have for what is an Omani perspective on harnessing AI, on becoming ready for this AI transformation ahead of us.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Just first would like to thank Slovenia and UNESCO for hosting this forum. It's my first time in Slovenia, and it's a wonderful country. My country has recognized early on the importance of AI and its impact. And we have built a vision on AI around 8 aspects, basically. First of all, early adoption, of course. It's very important to recognize and invest in AI. And this has happened, as an example, last year. the Ministry of Economy announced a $26 million budget for any government initiatives on AI immediately. And many of the ministries in Oman have gone ahead and started implementing AI. Number two, obviously, is ethical and safe use of AI. We are currently in Oman reviewing and updating laws and policies for fair, ethical, and safe use of AI. There has been a lot of discussions. We've participated in UNESCO and other organizations talking about ethical use, and it's really critical that we looked at it in more detail. Number three, policy development. Since it's a new thing, we introduced a policy for ethical use of AI in 2021 immediately, and launched a 2022 executive program for AI and advanced technologies as a national level strategy. Number four, which I'm heading, is educational initiatives. The Minister of Education in Oman developed a national framework for AI, and I'm heading a committee to see how this can help in education. Obviously, huge potential in education, especially in K-12 education, in terms of teacher training, teacher delivering lessons, students, and so on. So we are moving very fast to develop a framework. And we have also initiated an executive program for AI in school education, focusing on 2024 and 2027 initiatives. Number five, research collaboration. We've established a scientific chair for AI ethics with ISESCO. ISESCO is the Islamic World Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, fostering research collaboration. And we are actively in Oman encouraging scientific research institutions to contribute to global and national AI trends. Obviously, number six is ethical governance. We recognize the importance of ethical. Number seven, international collaboration. We collaborate with UNESCO. We commend UNESCO for its effort in achieving UN Sustainable Development Goals. And finally, commitment to sustainability. We've built AI around Oman Vision 2040, aiming for high-quality education, integrating technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we've now spoken to representatives of countries that have already started the RAM, are beginning the process. Dr. Center, I'd like to come to you next. In the last few days, we've already heard mention of the executive order a number of times, quite notable both in its breadth and in the way that it's led to a transformation inside of government. I wonder if you could share with us some of your thinking on what the inputs into the EO and kind of what you're learning as the EO gets implemented.
Great, thank you so much. And Madam Minister, thank you for hosting us. United States, I think our philosophy is one that basketball can best capture. There's a shot clock right here that tells us when we have to shoot the ball. And our philosophy is best captured by a basketball coach who said, be quick, but don't hurry. So go as fast as you can towards developing a governance framework around the understanding of the technology. But in those areas where we don't yet have answers, we should evaluate them before we move to public policy too quickly. The executive order, Vilas, as you mentioned, is a comprehensive approach to safe, secure, and trustworthy artificial intelligence. And let me just emphasize, every single element of the EO across all of the lines of implementation have an ethical component embedded in them. the elements and pillars of the EO include a deep concern for supporting workers through an incredibly disruptive period and upskilling workers. It includes a deep concern for how we can advance and protect civil rights, privacy, build in safeguards against bias and discrimination as AI systems are developed and implemented. Deep concern around how we can protect privacy as these systems are developed. And to come back to the theme that Gabriela ended her remarks with, one of the most important components to developing safe, secure, and responsible AI is to make sure that governments, when they employ and apply AI themselves in whatever ministry, across whatever sector, in whatever domain, have the kind of ethical framework that's capable of ensuring that we do move forward safely and responsibly. I would say there's just two pieces, Vilas, and my shot clock is over as well, that I'll emphasize. One is in terms of democratization of AI that the EO emphasizes. Much like the concerns that we have in terms of equity and the digital divide across the world, those are concerns within societies as well. And so we're developing a national AI research resource to ensure that compute and data are shared, not just with elite universities and the large companies, but across the ecosystem in the United States, and that's been an emphasis. And in the realm of don't hurry, there are certain areas where the United States in the EO is not yet comfortable that we have enough answers to create public policy. Two areas to emphasize. One, the implications for open source and AI, where there's tremendous excitement and hope, but there's also some concern about what the ramifications are going to be. The second, of course, is a complicated issue like copyright, where we continue to study this issue and to understand where we want to continue to develop and evolve AI using as much information as possible, but also recognizing the challenges there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate and recognize the importance of things like the National AI Research Resource from a civil society perspective. And we'll come to this in our second round of questions as we think about creating new points of access to compute, to data, to talent. But thank you for naming that. I'd like to come to our colleagues from the European Union. First, maybe to Estonia, a country that has been a leader on digital technologies for a number of years. I wonder if you could give us some context around both the AI Act and also what's happening in Estonia around preparation for and readiness for an AI era.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you Slovenia and UNESCO for hosting us here. But you are right. I think after last Friday's decision, we can almost say that we are there. So I believe we can almost congratulate us for having the most comprehensive AI Act in the world very soon. That has been quite missed. But what I would like to stress is that this AI Act is actually one part of EU's, I would say, AI environment. There are so many already existing acts, frameworks, strategies, action plans, institutions that allow for the development of and the use of AI in the EU. And I would say that this is the same also in Estonia. We are currently in the third four-year AI strategy and action plan, and how we have approached it is actually holistically. So I would say that AI as a technology is simply part of our digitalization journey and is integrated with this entire digital ecosystem. So we have existing institutions, bylaws, regulations, frameworks, but also organizations that, for example, are responsible for data governance. So how we share data, how we keep it safe, how we maintain data, how we reuse data, and so forth, or privacy, or security, or authentication, or digital skills, and so forth. So our current approach has been very much basing on the existing frameworks and also existing building blocks, and very much on central support. So I believe also with the coming AI Act, we would pretty much continue the approach that has worked for us, but of course there will be some additional requirements that may come from the AI Act. But for now, we very much focus on the central support for exchanging data between private sector and public sector, but also how to organize the use of the data that is held by private persons. So currently, every person can see how the data is being used, But increasingly, we have to think about how that data can also be reused, giving the permit, of course, of the person to be reused for either public benefit or perhaps for private or by a private sector. We are going to continue with our AI sandbox to support public but also private sector in using AI so that everybody can test the algorithms against current existing legal framework, but also security and privacy and other requirements. So I believe we will continue in this path.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And maybe to our colleague from Greece as well, a similar question. Tell us a little bit about both the national progress and how it fits inside of the AI Act work that's happening.
At first, I would like to thank UNESCO and Slovenia for organizing such a significant conference. You know, Greece has performed significant steps in digital governance in the past 5 years. Of course, we appreciate the progress of Estonia. And concerning Greece, just to mention that the EU digital certificate, which is a profound case of cross-border interoperability, was first presented in Greece in 2021. But for us, it's very evident that we follow EU directives and regulation and AI as our utmost priority. And concerning what we've done so far on AI, we just launched a month and a half ago an AI assistant for all government processes for our government portal, GovGR, to help people, all civilians, civilians to be served for any government processes through an AI assistant. We have thus a strong political commitment to implement the regulation, the AI regulation, and expediting policies and decisions essential for its success. And also we think that an interdisciplinary approach is one that is needed, one that involves experts from various domains for its success. Now, concerning institutional framework for AI implementation and monitoring, we have both advisory committees and oversight bodies. But first, we have launched a high-level advisory committee on AI, which is directly under the PM, and this was established just last year. We have a National Bioethics and Techno-Ethics Committee, and I think that this is also a significant priority, the one relates to bioethics. And we have also a committee related to the oversight of the development of AI. And this committee is responsible for monitoring the implementation progress of AI and making sure that decisions are really implemented. Now, concerning public bodies, that was just referenced a few minutes ago, we have an obligation of each public body that uses AI to conduct an algorithmic impact assessment before initiating such an operation. Such an assessment considers factors relating both to the risk evaluation and also societal benefits. And we also have a body which is responsible for receiving, processing, assessing, and conducting case-by-case investigations into complaints or petitions related to any violations of the obligations outlined in the law. And this is the National Transparency Authority, which is entrusted with such a responsibility. Public sector organizations, along with medium and large-scale enterprises operating AI systems, are mandated to maintain an AI system register, which must encompass information about their AI systems, including measures taken to ensure the secure and proper functioning of these systems. And that's pretty much our approach. Of course, in the EU domain, using the EU directions, we want to have the capability to implement the EU AI Act and also ensure the interoperability, but also our commitment to technological advancement and ethical considerations. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Last but not least, we come to our colleague from Mexico. Senator, you have really led Mexico's work in launching some significant new work streams on AI. I wonder if you could share a little bit about what's happening now and kind of what your expectations are for the next couple of years as you think about the new kind of AI, the new AI alliance that you're putting together.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. Gabriela Ramos, thank you very much, and to the UNESCO team for letting me share what's happening in Mexico. So, the National AI Alliance, ANIA, by its acronym in Spanish, launched 10 months ago as a multi-stakeholder initiative aimed at bolstering Mexico's AI ecosystem and as a response to the urgent need to have the AI regulation debate. It was created as a bicameral effort from the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies, and ANIA underscores the importance of inclusive, collaborative, and multidisciplinary approach to advance in regulation and policy frameworks in AI and emerging technologies. So we began working with the UNESCO, and the RAM has played a pivotal role in shaping a national strategy proposal for artificial intelligence by offering a comprehensive structured framework. RAM has become key in assessing and steering the ethical development on AI regulation in Mexico. So we established experts working groups in 6 main themes: human rights and public policy, education and labor markets, cybersecurity and risk management, gender inclusion and social responsibility, infrastructure and data, and innovation and industry. And using the RAM, we structured the conversation to align the results of these working groups with the global AI ethics recommendation. And based on the diagnosis and the conclusions, we are moving to actions. We already presented a constitutional bill to allow Congress to legislate in matters of artificial intelligence, neural rights, and cybersecurity, and it was endorsed by all political parties. We are collaborating with the UK Prosperity Fund on feasibility studies to implement a regulatory sandbox for testing emerging technologies or public policy overseen by regulatory authorities. We created specialized working groups to advance on cybersecurity, data, neural rights, and regulatory sandbox bills. And we are collaborating with CAF in documenting case studies on AI use in governments and Mexican businesses and startups. And we work a lot on awareness, education, and skills related to AI to the general populations. And lastly, we are preparing a policy paper with all these results to present to the presidential candidates in the coming months. This is key since the 6th article in our Constitution mandates the executive to develop a national digital inclusion as part of the National Development Plan. So regarding the role of parliamentarians, collaboration in a multi-stakeholder approach is crucial for shaping public policies and regulations that advocate for a just, inclusive, and sustainable use of AI. And the UNESCO RAM has been key on all this strategy. Thank you very much.
Very good. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. We come now to what we, continuing the sports metaphor, halftime. And I wonder if you will join me, please. I know it's difficult to take the richness and robustness of your experience and put it in that 2-minute slotting that we have been given. Will you please join me in appreciating our panel for sharing their wisdom in such a format? Thank you all so much. I reflect on, in the kind of richness of what's been shared, I sense 2 themes that I just want to name as we come back to you all for a second round of interventions. The first is, I'm struck by the fact that as you talk about the use of the RAM, in almost every instance, this has felt like a whole-of-government approach. That it's not so much a regulation of a technology, which is a legislative process, but a restructuring of approaches across all of government, and hopefully, I think, in partnership with civil society and the private sector as well. I'll ask you to touch on those themes maybe when we come back to you for a second round of questions. The second theme that just seems to continually emerge here is the necessity both for kind of a universal frame for AI readiness, but as I listen to your answers, also a localization around the priorities that you're focusing on. And Asetu, maybe I'll come back to you for the first question. You spoke of the pillars, and one of those that you mentioned was agriculture. I wonder if you might share with us from a Senegalese perspective, as you think about AI, what are the impacts on a pillar like agriculture, and how are you thinking about sharing and disseminating those maybe through white papers or other mechanisms as you go through the RAM process?
Thank you. for Senegal, the agriculture is a priority. Then the president included the how to say it in English? I don't know. My English is not so good. The action plan. EI is in the country's priority action plan 2024 to 2028. Then the other priority is agriculture. So we linked the two together to know exactly, because there is a lot of climate changes. And the agriculture was, the farmer was dealing just like her experiences. So I will put the seed today, and with the climate change, it is not more, it is not useful now. So if you have a lot of application about the meteor, about the humidity, about how to sell after, because, and about genetic, it said genetic, how to modify, not modify genetic, but the useful of the seed. It can be interesting. Though the first thing we will do after the action plan, the first one is a national consultation to identify the regulation, how to regulate, to take into account our cultural, our social living, how we will live together. The second one will be about national AA for research, innovation, and training. The third one will be about a very big program of, it is awareness for all people to know the opportunity of AI and using in ethical manner. So this is the third action we will do next, and the agriculture will be in the center of this action plan. The farmers, the barriers, local language barriers, because we are dealing in Senegal, we are the population is talking Wolof, is a national language. In the governance is talking French. Then if we want the population to use EA, we have to translate all we are doing to have more inclusivity, how to use it. If you want agriculture, our priority is agriculture, we need to have services in this language, in their language, to understand what really it can help in this field. So it's what we are going to do next.
Wonderful. Thank you. And if I can say it back to you, I think you've shared with us a powerful framework here. A broad-based digital literacy, making sure that people understand what AI can do for us, an ethical framework that sits on top of that, localization in language, and then finally these sector-level interventions around agriculture. And it provides a nice way for us to think about exactly what this looks like. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Mr. Echeverria, I wonder if I can come to you with a similar question. One of the things that you spoke to was this local implementation, but then understanding there's a regional context to it. And as you think about this process, where do we really find those places of productive engagement in a regional setting or an international one, even as we honor kind of individual country journeys? I'm sorry, I will just let everybody know I have gone fully off script here. So all of these questions I'm offering for the first time. Yeah. So thank you for your patience with me, and we look forward to your responses.
It's a tough question. Okay, so let me share a little bit of the process of creating this working group in Latin America. We have had already 3 meetings. One that was in Santiago that ended up with a declaration, and after that we have been working with technical teams. But one of the, I would say, acknowledgements so far is that once we start looking in the details of what the countries need, and on the different approaches, particularly on the responsible use of AI, we realize that it's really not rocket science, right? It's fairly similar the challenges we have in the different countries. We all need the capacities, so we need computing capacities, we need connectivity, we need data, we need people that are trained and know how to use it. We all need some sort of framework so our governments can implement and deploy artificial intelligence, but also our companies can implement it fast and even create them if they can. And there's also an awareness that when we talk about ethical use or responsible use of artificial intelligence, it also has to do with how we create capacities within the countries to be empowered and to be able to actually use artificial intelligence. And that's one of the sources of discrimination, if you would say, not only on the AI as on itself, but also on the capacities the different countries have to actually implement it. And going back to what the colleague from Senegal was saying, language is one, but also populations that are not digitalized, right? We have large amounts of populations in territories that do not have access to digital tools, and therefore they're not providing for data, they're not fitting the artificial intelligence, and they're being left behind even more than they were with the first digital wave, right? So when you take the conversation from the local to the regional level, those challenges are the same. The way you tackle those challenges and you implement it locally might differ. And that's where the local work needs to be done, and then the stronger and more deep collaboration needs to happen. But at a regional level, and I would say at a national level, the challenges are the same. And they're not that many. It's just 2, 3, or 4 at the most.
That's quite an inspiring framing. Thank you for that. And it makes it feel much more approachable and tactical. Ms. Dixon, I wonder if I can come to you. Both on the same theme, but also in your comments, you spoke to what I think many countries are facing, which is where do we find the talent, the expert talent that helps advise our entry into the process? You talked about how you brought some people into this expert committee. I wonder if you can share more on that as well.
Thank you very much. And, you know, with AI, and I'm so glad that the minister from Chile just spoke to, people being left behind. Inclusion is really, really important, digital inclusion. And in countries like mine, we tend to be consumers of technology and not producers of it. And so it's not done with us in mind. And we are very cognizant of that fact, and we want to obviously change that. And the only way to change that is through skills development and having none of our children be left behind, because we do have large income disparities and disparities in educational outcomes. And we know that AI can exacerbate that. And so we've wanted to ensure that the skilling and the reskilling is a key priority in this. And in order to do that, we have to have the experts. And our universities have some experts. And I know from where I sit, I spend a lot of time with our computer science students in university, because I want them to understand that what they're doing is also supposed to benefit the government. And so I do AI hackathons with them where they have to solve government problems. Because when you have a country where not many get this opportunity to have the skills in AI or in general technology, it's important that they also understand that with that access, there is some responsibility to their country in helping us to work through the problems of the country. And so I've used our universities quite a bit in order to give us some of their expertise in developing our AI framework. And we also are looking to our diaspora. There are many people globally who are Jamaicans who we can use for expertise. And then very importantly, other countries in Latin America and the Caribbean that I can learn a lot from, and even in Europe. I mean, we've studied Estonia quite a bit in order to understand what we're doing. And so that's really one of the lovely things about globalization and fora like this, where you can actually learn from others, because as you are trying to make this big leap, as many of us in the global south are trying to do, we have to learn from the expertise of others, both locally and internationally, if we are going to do that. But that skills development piece is big. And I need to just note one last thing, which is infrastructure. Infrastructure is key. If we're talking about AI, AI can seem so esoteric and high, but where people don't have access to internet, that's a big concern. I'm just going to be exacerbating that disparity. And so for us, that issue of infrastructure, even just broadband and having broadband access across the country and having all our schools having internet access is critical if I'm going to really be successful with any initiative towards having AI being a part of the fabric of our country. And so it's a bigger issue than just AI for me.
Fantastic, thank you. I think you're exactly right. Very good. On this theme, Mr. Dewey, again to Vietnam, this question of expertise, of talent, of localization, and your kind of priorities as you think about using the RAM and the process forward.
Yes, as I mentioned before, that we don't want to be only the consumer. We also want to be the developers, AI developer of the world as well. So, like for IT, we have proved that we are a good and big providers for IT solutions for the world. We have a very big population of 100 million people, and with a big pool of young talents where young people always eager to learn, especially the new things. So in our strategies, we really want to focus on education at 3 levels. The first level is the very general society level, where we want to train people, everyone. I mean, like, not only in computer science, everyone have the basics knowledge and skills on data preparation, data analysis, and AI application buildings. So we already integrate. I mean, before we replace the cost on general information technology cost, and now we're replacing it with data analysis and general AI courses for every student in university. We did that in some big university. And then on top of that, we want to build our talents for computer science, for IT, and especially for AIs. We start to have AI courses from primary schools and high schools, and then after that, then we can create more students who like to study computer science and AI in the futures. And of course, on top of that one, then we focus on training talents with the help from other countries. With a lot of partners. We have the partner from the United States, from Australia, from Korea, Japan, and China, and European Union as well. And we did have undergraduate courses, especially on AI, in many universities. And I don't know whether you know that in Vietnam right now, we have entrance exams for university. Before, the top student will go to commerce, business, medical schools, but now all the top students, they go for computer science and AI. And like fresh graduate student would receive a salary of several $1,000 right after graduation. I mean, like company from Japan, Korea, the US, they would go to Vietnam and hire people. So I mean, we are focusing on talents, and hopefully we will create a big pool of talents for AI in the future.
Wonderful, thank you. You know, in a particularly kind of poignant conversation I had with a young girl recently, I asked her what she wanted to study, and she said AI. I said, why do you want to be a computer scientist? And she said, no, I want to be mayor. the idea that now AI is becoming a part of a journey that we're all on, no matter what we want to do, is quite exciting. So thank you for sharing that. Mr. Al-Bahri, maybe you can share from the Omani experience, again, touching on these themes, both of local expression and interest, but also talent, kind of expertise, resources.
Thank you. I think I've had in this conversation about localization, globalization, and really, we all know that AI revolves around data, and data on the internet and elsewhere. And we've noticed, for example, we don't have much Arabic, massive amount of Arabic data, and therefore that's one of the challenges. That's one of the priorities really that we need to work on. The other priority, of course, I've heard from my colleague from Jamaica about infrastructure. Definitely, infrastructure is important so that AI is accessible by everyone. But of course, the other priorities we have, in AI governance include strengthening the legal framework. I've mentioned this early on. It's really critical. Ethical guidelines as well. Public awareness and education. And this is a big thing in Oman. In the Ministry of Education, we have massive amount of awareness campaigns. We believe that this starts in the school education, and it's starting early on in the early childhood education. Of course, as well as public awareness. Data privacy is really critical. Recently, data privacy laws have been passed to make sure that people are protected, and also it strengthens the measures for protecting individuals in the context of AI usage. International collaboration, I mentioned earlier about collaborating with the international agencies, UNESCO and others. It's really critical. And really by focusing on these priorities, we aim to foster a governance framework that ensures ethical, responsible and inclusive development of and deployment of AI. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to continue this thread that I've heard from several speakers about the commitment to infrastructure, to data privacy. I wonder if I could come to you, Nelly, to talk a little bit about certainly the experience of GDPR in the EU, kind of what's happening next in terms of implementation of the AI Act, interoperability with the rest of the world, how you're seeing kind of lessons from that continue through, and then I'll come to our colleague from Greece to speak to the same. Please. Here you go.
Yeah, thank you. I believe everybody in this room agrees that really to have an impact from technology on our economy, but also in mitigating risks, we need global collaboration and global norms and global standards. But what I really enjoyed in the opening when Gabriela Ramos said that, yes, we need these principles and norms, but what we really need is implementation. And it is indeed so that when we look at a global level, we don't see countries exchanging data with all the countries and companies and so forth. But we do see a lot of happening at the national, and I would say actually at the regional level. So when I look at my own country, so we started with interoperability nationally to make sure that we are able to exchange data between government and private sector, and also in an automated way. We then started to work with our neighbor Finland on cross-border data sharing. And we now exchange data with so many countries. For example, we have a digital prescription with Greece, also with Portugal. So when I go for a holiday, I can buy the medicine that my doctor has prescribed to me in Estonia. So what I want to say is that we may not necessarily need to wait for a global regulation to start working on our interoperability. We can team up with Jamaica and start sharing our economic data or any other. So actually, things may emerge bottom up. And I think the similar parallel can also be made actually to our topic of this event, AI. I believe that a big part of our global conversation is on large language models, ChatGPT, a big bang. So it leaves an impression that it is just, I would say, for a few countries and a few big players. And then it may raise a question, so what is there for us? What is there for Estonia? And indeed, we are not building a large language model, maybe a small language model one day, but we do use AI quite extensively in our public sector and also private sector. And sometimes these solutions can actually be very simple, but turn out to be very useful. For example, the most used solution in Estonia for some years was, I don't know, maybe my data is a little bit expired, was actually the data anonymization from documents that need to be public but cannot contain private information. So I believe that we can also, from local and regional level, go global and not always wait for global answers to our problems. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And to the Secretary General from Greece then.
I totally agree that the key is implementation, implementation, implementation. Now, concerning interoperability with the rest of the world, yes, interoperability with the rest of the world is crucial for the successful implementation of the EU AI Act. And this not only relates to technical aspects of interoperability or data exchange, but also concerns organizational interoperability, which is perhaps even more crucial. UNESCO has done excellent work with the recommendation on the ethics of AI, and I would like us to pinpoint some aspects that may be of significance to achieve this interoperability. First, adoption of a minimum set of common classification rules for AI systems and risks and AI practices. Second, harmonize the EU AI Act with international standards and fostering a common framework for ethical AI globally. Then, to define specific testing procedures of high-risk AI systems, and to define a minimum set of common requirements, both for compliance and obligation and operational obligations, considering the UNESCO recommendation. Then we need to have common practices, I think, for market surveillance and control of AI systems. And in this respect, collaboration with international organizations and competent authorities will be beneficial to bridge gaps and facilitate the exchange of best practices in governance, AI ethics, and regulation. This can also be achieved through open dialogue and cooperation with countries outside the EU, and this will support a multidisciplinary cross-country collaboration among all relevant stakeholders and promote specialized AI skills. Thus, we need to heavily invest in a global participatory approach to shape technology in a democratized way. And this is of utmost importance for us. AI-driven innovation and digital transformation should be developed in collaboration with citizens and all relevant stakeholders in an inclusive and participatory manner, another a democratized approach. And to summarize, it's all a matter of promoting dissemination of knowledge and best practices at an international level, and being able to do so and take advantage of it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Very good. Alejandra, we come to you then for maybe your reflections on some of the conversation we've been having here. Kind of what's ahead as you think about next steps?
I think we think in the Alliance and in Mexico that governance is as important as the regulation. So for Mexico, it's crucial to define AI governance priorities, to establish a robust governance framework that needs to be at the same time networked and adaptive. We need to map the digital ecosystem, as this is essential to design strategies to implement the appropriate systemic changes, regulations, and policies. We need to strengthen AI-related regulators. We think in the possibility of creating an autonomous and specialized multidisciplinary organization who supervises the implementation and compliance of the AI regulations and emerging technologies, as well as cybersecurity. We have our uniqueness and cultural richness, therefore our data and AI models, LLMs, should be regionalized. For example, we have 68 indigenous languages. We need to align with global standards. We will need to strengthen legal existing frameworks and test with regulation sandboxes to include AI-specific regulations. We think on integrating multi-sectorial participation is essential. We need to promote inclusivity and address the digital divide by integrating AI solutions that cater to diverse populations, including indigenous communities. We think on enhancing public institutions' capacities for AI use. It's a priority. The implementation of a robust cybersecurity measures to protect data and infrastructure and generate digital trust is very important in Mexico. We need to ensure the data privacy and protection, leverage open data and open source policies to foster innovation in Mexico. Sustainability is very important for us. The national, regional, and international multi-stakeholder collaboration. We need to check in the quality of data, so the Mexican data can be integrated in the global models, and infrastructure as well, access to internet, to supercomputing, and to have direct human supervision.
Amazing, thank you. Very good. We come, I think, to the last of our speakers in this round, Dr. Sunner. We've heard a lot of remarks here. I know that you have spoken to safe, secure, and trustworthy AI. Give us a sense of the milestones ahead. What do we need to be thinking about as the world moves in that direction?
Thanks, Vilas, and this has been a rich conversation. It's reassuring that in so many different contexts, all of us are basically both grappling with and trying to solve the same issues, even in the absence of some larger global architecture. So I'm quite optimistic. And Vilas, thank you also to the McGovern Foundation for driving so much of this work on the capacity building front. I'll start with a US example, talk a little bit of depth in how the United States is approaching safe, secure, and trustworthy AI, and then maybe telescope out. When it comes to implementation of an architecture or rubric, whether it's safe, secure, trustworthy, or in another national context, an idea that captures that same component, the number one thing that has to happen is top-down leadership. That's a very obvious statement. It doesn't apply to AI. It applies to anything when we're talking about national governance and particularly implementation. In the United States context, we now have a White House AI Advisory Council. I had the privilege of being in it last week. And it brings together every cabinet secretary. And they're taken in front of the leadership of the White House and asked, what are you doing to implement your responsibilities under the executive order? And that steady drumbeat of pressure from leadership is what drives change down through institutions. And we're quite pleased that that kind of intensity is driving the focus in the United States. In terms of a little more concrete example, the next phase, really, of artificial intelligence and the next phase of safe, secure, and responsible development will have to come through the ability to measure, evaluate, and assess AI systems. And in the United States context, in particular, as we project the technology forward, what we're thinking about here is what is the implications for the scaling of foundation models, and how do we ensure that it is done safely and securely? And so what the United States has established is an AI Safety Institute to build the capacity to do this in a domestic context. And we hope other countries also develop that same kind of capacity, and then we network those capacities together to make sure that we're all measuring, evaluating the same thresholds, so we don't have the kind of fragmentation that we're worried about. And then in a global context, I really think that this is a unique moment in which our citizens in each of our countries and our governments do have a responsibility, and our people expect us to deliver on what safe and secure, responsible, trustworthy AI looks like. In that sense, I'm quite optimistic that we're closer to a consensus than we've ever been, and in a very compressed period of time. the United States and many of its partners are hoping to successfully secure a resolution around seizing the opportunities for AI and gearing that towards the Sustainable Development Goals in the United Nations right now in the General Assembly. We think it's the kind of consensus-building effort that the world expects of us right now, and we're eager to help and collaborate with everyone on that.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you again. Please a round of applause for our experts here. As we wrap up, I think I'd like to just take the prerogative to share one idea that I think echoes what I've heard from all of you, that the sense of policy making or readiness isn't merely about a responsiveness to risks. It's about centering the fact that these tools and technologies are prevalent, pervasive, and ubiquitous, but what we need to focus on is ensuring that they're used in ways that promote the public welfare, that center those who are most vulnerable, that center communities who are proximal to problems we face, that allows governments to step in a proactive and positive way to actually support and build solutions that actually make the world a better place. I think I've heard elements of that from all of you. I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank again UNESCO for the work that's been done around the ethical principles. The readiness assessment methodology has now been taken by 50 countries. That means there are 150 remaining who hopefully can benefit from its use. And I hope we will continue this process of learning from you all and learning from each other as we do this work. Thank you all very much. Thank you again. I look forward to the rest of the day.
Thank you to the panelists and to Mr. Dar for a fantastic discussion and for the opportunity to give us a short coffee break. Well, another interesting fact about Slovenia is that prehistoric Slovenians actually are the founders of sustainable mobility. We'll have a group photo, which is better if there is a short applause. Great. Well, in the meantime, I can explain it to you why the Slovenians are the founders of the sustainable mobility. Well, in 2002, Slovenian archaeologists discovered a wooden wheel about 20 kilometers southeast of the capital in the marshes of Ljubljana. The wheel was found to be between 5,100 and 5,350 years old. This makes it the oldest wooden wheel ever found in the world. So you can see it in the Ljubljana City Museum. To claim that Slovenians invented coffee and coffee breaks would be an exaggeration. But you can enjoy it all the way. Coffee breaks are also very popular in Slovenia. We invite you to take a break, but be back, please, in the main hall at 1100 hours sharp to continue the ministerial meeting. So enjoy the Slovenian coffee break. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming back. Welcome again. We'll continue with the second part of the ministerial session on national government of AI in focus. We'll hear insights from UNESCO readiness assessment exercises and country experiences. But let me start with a stupid question, which is, let's say, oriented towards being friendly to the participants. Do we have any owners of a Seat car here? Or people who rented a Seat car? Please check your keys because we found a pair of Seat car keys here in the hall, and you can find it at the info desk at the entrance of the lobby. So special welcome to all Seat car owners. But I'm now really happy to hand over to the moderator of the second part of the panel, Mr. Antonio Zappula, the CEO of Thomson Reuters Foundation. It is the corporate foundation of Thomson Reuters and an independent charity. Mr. Zappula has a fantastic CV, and he was really successful. In his work, he realigned the foundation's strategic focus. Take care of your phone, please. So he realigned the foundation's strategic focus around three main areas of work: fostering inclusive economies, advancing media freedom, and promoting human rights. He has a fantastic CV, holds a degree in journalism, which is fine. Me the same, but I don't have a master's degree in Middle East Studies. And he also continued his executive education at the Stanford Graduate School for Business. So a fantastic moderator. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
It's probably, yeah, switch it on. Then it works.
Okay, it should be working.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and welcome back. Delighted to be here for the second Global Forum on the ethics of AI from UNESCO. And coming here, I was reflecting on the fact that I couldn't think of a topic that could be really more current, more critical, and at the same time really more cryptic. Obviously, we know that AI and the ethics of AI is a very current topic, especially since the introduction of ChatGPT. This tool is in the hands of billions of people who are experimenting with it on a daily basis. We also seen the release of new AI tools almost on a daily basis, and we're seeing also business starting to embed these tools in product and services, really unlocking tremendous potential. At the same time, as I said, it's a very critical moment in time because AI ethics is obviously a critical topic for discussion. And here, I think of the words of President Biden that speaks of potential and peril. We obviously know that there is immense potential, even if we think, for example, of using the power of AI to unlock many of the SDG goals that we still need to achieve. And we know that we're very, very far behind when it comes to some of the SDG goals. But at the same time, we know that without ethical safeguards and guardrails, AI could obviously produce tremendous harm. We spoke about it earlier. We know about the risk of deepening divisions and bias. We have spoken about obviously the risk of amplifying disinformation, and we know how relevant this threat is, especially this year. Create new forms of exploitation, eroding the job market even further, and of course, threatening fundamental human rights and freedom. But I think there's another aspect that I mentioned earlier, the fact that AI is essentially a cryptic topic for many of us, many of the general public. And the general public here has really to rely on the competence of their governments. And this is really at a time when we know that trust in institutions is unfortunately at an all-time low. And that's why these recommendations from UNESCO are so strategically important, because they put human rights at the center, because they encourage transparency, and they really call for accountability. The framework also calls for collaboration, and I think this is a perfect evidence of that form of collaboration. And it's really important that we consider who has a seat at the table. ADG Ramos earlier was mentioning the Global South, and it's fantastic to see such a strong representation of the Global South in this format. But I would also add that it's really important that we communicate what we are doing clearly and effectively to the general public that, again, has very little understanding of what the governments are doing to regulate AI, to unlock its potential, but also to limit risk. So today we are really talking to leaders that are taking these frameworks from theory to practice. And we're going to be having countries grouped in categories of countries that have already adopted the readiness assessment. They're almost finishing it. We're going to be hearing from EU countries and countries outside the European Union. So I'll actually want to start with countries that have almost completed the readiness assessment methodology. And I'm actually going to start with Minister Ndong from Gabon, and then we're going to be speaking to the Dominican Republic and Uruguay. And I guess my first question for you is around ethical dilemmas. And if you can give us a sense of specific ethical dilemmas that were introduced by AI in your countries and how you are tackling them. If we can start with Gabon.
Merci. Thank you very much. Please allow me to thank Slovenia and UNESCO for organizing this global forum and giving us the opportunity to share what we are doing in Gabon. So AI Adventure started in 2019 officially. So together with UNESCO and the Global Commission on Ethics of Innovative Solutions, we organized an awareness workshop on AI. And our idea was to launch the first discussions on AI in Gabon. And during that workshop, we talked about the stakes around AI. And we wanted to promote and be able to use AI as a development tool. And we also talked about warning policymakers about the use of AI. And in November 2021, so together with all the countries of UNESCO, we adopted a recommendation on ethics of AI. And after this, UNESCO provided support to the various member states and Gabon in the assessment process for the readiness for the implementation of AI. And we implemented a technical group for implementation of AI. And we have members of the ministries who are dealing directly with this issue. And this committee worked on the preliminary works for the assessment processes using the RAM tool. So on 20th of December in Libreville, together with UNESCO, we organized a workshop on the readiness level. And at the end of this workshop, the Prime Minister received a report by the UNESCO local representative. When we talk about AI governance, seeing the deep stakes and the challenges, the government is really involved at all the levels, at the highest levels too. And this is a first stage for us because we want to define a national strategy, and we really want to implement AI systems, even though we are still at the start of our works. So we want an adapted strategy, and our workshop helped us adopt 3 recommendations. First of all, we want to create an ad hoc committee to define the AI strategy for Gabon, and we want a national council who will organize the oversight of AI. We want to involve all the ministries as stakeholders and who will help implement our strategy. And we want to I would like to note also that the Prime Minister and the highest level of governments are involved too. So we are organizing an assessment and at a second stage involving all the stakeholders, the companies and all the funders. Among the various challenges, there is the issue of the question, the expert availability, infrastructure availability, and we need to organize things so that we can really use these opportunities presented by AI. And I am convinced that AI governance at a global level needs a collaborative and coordinated approach together among governments. We need the civil society, we need NGOs, we need international organizations, and we also would like to organize to foster cooperation. We would like to organize the first international forum on the AI in Central Africa. Thank you.
Keeping to time, we heard about collaboration, we heard about infrastructure and the need to engage civil society. I'd like to talk to Uruguay now and understanding also what efforts are taking place in your country?
Thank you. You know, I've been thinking right now, what's the new thing, the new thing in AI? The new thing is that AI, since OpenAI created ChatGPT, can speak, can talk with us. And it seems to be intelligent. It seems to be that we are talking with somebody because it has language. But this is an exercise that maybe this is not the best place to do it because you are all experts. But who in this room used AI yesterday or today? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see so many hands. But this reminds me a university professor, criminal law professor, who asked us, who of you committed an offense or a crime and nobody raised their hands? But then we realized that at least once we were out of a law, of course, at minus offense. Criminal law is ultima ratio law. It's when states have no other option than prosecute and then jail. Thinking about regulation, I don't think to regulate with the pathology as a driver. Regulation have to be ultima ratio, but with a centric human right view. AI is more than generative AI. It's what we've been using for decades, and this is why we are struggling in government attempts to regulate. But what are we doing in Uruguay? We create a national artificial intelligence strategy. We integrate UNESCO ethical recommendations into the strategy and international principles and standards. We create the necessary institutional framework that allows progress in the definition of a government model, lead the implementation of the strategy. We analyze the appropriate regulatory framework from Uruguay, because in Uruguay we have robust laws of data protection and open government. So we have to evolve that laws, but we need to regulate our ecosystem, our environment. Sorry. We launch an AI observatory as an instrument of transparency and accountability. We generate a comprehensive framework through the creation of the first national data strategy, digital citizen strategy, and national cybersecurity strategy. But how about the RAM, the readiness assessment? I think this tool makes us walking the talk. You know, in particular, the application of the RAM tool has allowed us to carry out an exhaustive self-diagnosis uncovering multiple dimensions that many not have covered if we have not applied this methodology. This diagnosis, as well as the recommendation that UNESCO makes us, will be used as very valuable input that's very important for the design of the new institutional framework of Uruguay and the integration of ethical components in the national strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. I like talking the talk and walking the walk. So what's happening in the Dominican Republic?
Thank you.
One of the main challenges and concerns is the ethical use of AI for non-discrimination within public and private services. And this is expressed in the growing and accelerated race for the customization of artificial intelligence models in automation and digitalization processes. The big problem that this presents is that the artificial intelligence models existing on the market to generate customization processes. Their development base is English. And this generates dissonances when it comes to realities like the Dominican, where we speak Spanish. This puts us at risk of creating AI systems that can misinterpret information and data, leading to situations in which people are not treated equally, In other words, we run the risk of generating AI models that do not understand people. Another challenge that exists is regarding to data. This gets bigger when we choose to customize and not create artificial intelligence models of public interest and in Spanish, and that also do not rely on data infrastructure that guarantees the sovereignty of our citizens' data. Customization is useful when it comes to creating solutions that use public information, but when it comes to sensitive information related to citizens, we must necessarily opt for the construction of our own AI models of public interest, based on the language of the users of public services who will use it and support it by infrastructure that guarantees safe and responsible management of data and avoid gaps in privacy and security. Regarding the UNESCO RAM tool, it offers strategic support to overcome some of the obstacles. It provides key players in the Dominican Republic a structured way to analyze the existing AI ecosystem and formulate strategies that balance the need for innovation within ethical risk management. The tool offers guidance for conducting ethical impact assessments, developing informed policies, and training actors in the field of AI. This is essential to promote technological development that is aligned with the country's values and ethical principles.
Love the fact that you stressed on data protection, obviously another very important aspect. I'd like to turn to the EU countries represented here on stage. Obviously, a very important week last week, the EU AI Act is really approaching. How ready are you in your own countries to have the right frameworks that will take, obviously, the whatever is contained within the EU AI Act really into enforcement into practice? I'd like to start with a minister from Lithuania and then Romania.
Thank you, Antonia. First, let me express my gratitude to Slovenia and for the UNESCO for wonderful hospitality and for the possibility to discuss and to talk about the national agenda and as well European agenda for such a broad and very international audience. In Lithuania, the Ministry of Economy and Innovation, the main body developing policy on artificial intelligence governance, but in alignment with the requirements of European Union AI Act, it is foreseen that one more body will be designated or created for the implementation of the policy of AI governance. When it comes to national agenda, Lithuania already taken various legislative and strategic measures that indirectly impact artificial intelligence regulation, particularly in areas such as data privacy, anti-discrimination law, and digital strategy. In 2018, Lithuania issued strategic guidelines on artificial intelligence, emphasizing the integration of AI systems across various economic sectors. These guidelines will be reviewed in light of recent developments and, of course, in AI technologies and upcoming adoption of EU AI Act. Concerning the risks, the EU AI does not set any new rules for intellectual property rights protection. However, with the advancement of artificial intelligence, copyright protection and measures must be equally developed. From the perspective of Ministry of Culture, which is responsible on making policy on culture and public information policy, I would like to stress and highlight a few aspects. First of all, we need global regulatory solutions and dedicated attention to the rights of the creators whose content is used to develop and train artificial intelligence, to consider possible remuneration models for creators which with full respect of intellectual property rights, and it is important to include to the decision-making process international organizations such as World Intellectual Property Organization and national bodies which are responsible for the intellectual property. Secondly, the unstable situation all over the world and the war in Ukraine multiplies the risks of disinformation and misinformation and deepfakes. And the recent survey of the World Economic Forum showed that business leaders see artificial intelligence developed or supported misinformation and disinformation as the greatest challenge in the world for the next 2 years. So the topic needs very special attention and needs united forces from all over the world. And last but not the least, AI tends to multiply the mainstream cultures. So it is very important to pay special attention to preserving cultural and linguistic diversity. And this is very essential to the countries with a small population. So basically, that's the main risks we observe.
Thank you. We'll come back to the EU ministers as well. Minister Mititelu, what's happening in Romania? You're ready to implement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start with saying thank you for your hospitality to Slovenia. It's my first time in Slovenia, and until now it was a great experience for me. And talking about AI Act, it was a strong debated document, and with a long way for having a final version in the trialogue. And actually, we are waiting now to see the official version in the official journey of European Union and start to set on the national level the governance of AI established. What institution will manage this part, and also not just what institution, but we'll have a lot of work, and we already started to invest in this part for processing power, because we want to be a lead in this part, let's say, of processing power and having startups in the artificial intelligence part, and for this we are preparing an AI cloud based on GPU. Also, we saw that it's hard for us to find human resources in this field of artificial intelligence, and to find real experts in understanding the models, understanding the future of artificial intelligence, and it's very hard. Also, we are working on finding the right way for paying these people in this field and bringing them into the public administration, but we had a good practice example in Romania with the collaboration, and I think that will be the key for artificial intelligence in the European Union, the collaboration between public and private sector. We had this example with collaboration between the Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization, let's say an AI startup, Humans AI, when we created the first Prime Minister advisor based on artificial intelligence. And we saw that collaboration between us providing the administrative framework to the private sector, it was the key, and we have great results. The Prime Minister advisor, Ion, it's a bridge between policymakers and citizens, and using a mirror, let's say, we got the information with the with priorities of the citizens, and also we are preparing the second version with not just the advisor of the Prime Minister, also the advisor for citizens. So Ion already has some new features, and he is able to answer for a question like how to get a new passport, how to change my ID, and being a virtual public servant for citizens. But also, it was hard, and it's hard for us to find the processing power for this public servant. But also, we are preparing, investing in the research part and national program for research. Starting from this year, we have a special chapter for artificial intelligence and also for cybersecurity. And I hope in short time, so we have a law for cybersecurity, and we said 10% of the research project, research budget will go to the cybersecurity. I hope soon we'll have also a % for artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really interesting to hear about the application, for example, in public administration, and obviously the challenges that we heard already about talent and about connectivity and processing power. Let's now speak to two countries that haven't yet started the RAM, and I wanted to hear from the Maldives and from Mexico, understanding what tools are out there that you're actually using to craft your AI governance. I would like to start from the Maldives.
Thank you. Let me also start off by thanking and congratulating Slovenia and also UNESCO for hosting and organizing this very, very special event. I think this is what gives countries like ours the opportunity to explore and learn and to be engaged in processes that are happening worldwide. I think as for AI and as for the tool, I think the country is all ready to take up RAM and other policy guidelines and learn from it. As of now, specific guidelines or frameworks has not so far been developed and adapted. But I think it is how the approach that we should take that matters. I think starting with adaptability of the new technology in both governance and also in service delivery. I think that comes key. So once we start engaging the AI technology, certainly the need remains for us to take it there. Similarly, I think often we generally start with taking up issues, or you might call it as incident responses at the government level. But I think we can understand that it is important that we be prepared further ahead and address to these issues. And I do see these matters very appropriately being addressed within the RAM for us to develop the framework. There is, however, work that is underway, usually at the higher education institutions levels, in terms of research, looking at perhaps frameworks that have been adopted in other countries, as well as one that has been developed by UNESCO on how we could in fact adapt it. And as I mentioned, I think we are keenly looking forward to utilizing these tools and adaptation. And in this regard, I think as a way forward, it's the international collaboration that equally we are looking at starting with exploring the existing collaborations with other organizations, other countries, which have so far moved quite far ahead in both regularizing, but at the same time, I would rather call it as facilitating the use and adaptation of this new technology, which is to stay. Equally, I think it's very important for small countries like ours for us to ensure that we build the technical capacity to work on these areas, because in terms of current available expertise, It is certainly a challenge that remains, but I think it's not about reinventing the wheel again, since there are already opportunities available. But I think the keen interest that is there for us, however small. By the way, Maldives is a country with a population of less than 500,000 people, with a very, very dispersed population. So often looking for talent in these areas, looking for expertise within, we may have challenges. However, interest in it, and I think looking for opportunities for us to work in these areas are important. So looking at these things, what we do feel that is required is a legal framework also to be put in place to facilitate this. So I think for us, we are at a stage, I think, especially looking at the tools, looking at the instrument that has been developed by UNESCO, and also on strategies that have been adopted by both UNESCO member countries and I think other countries, at a stage where we ourselves could start adapting these tools to the needs that are there. Because however small that we may be, I think the challenges still remain the same. And I think there can also be other unique challenges that we face due to the smallness, especially with regard to climate change and how low-lying countries like ours are affected. So how we can use data that has been currently collected both at the national level and internationally, using AI to predict perhaps potential dangers that could also exist for us. So, yeah, so I think we are all ready to take this up. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister. And again, we hear about scale, we hear about talent, and we hear about collaboration. Eager to hear from Mexico Ambassador to understand, obviously very different size in terms of population of country, whether you are seeing the same challenges and what tools are you operating at the moment to be ready to adapt.
Thank you very much, Antonio. And first of all, let me join my colleagues in thanking the government of Slovenia and UNESCO for organizing this very, very important meeting. Coming to your questions, Antonio, yes, it's true that we have not begun yet to implement RAM, but that doesn't mean that Mexico has not begun to take care of what we should be doing in the realm of innovation ecosystems and, among others, AI. So let me share with you briefly in this panel what we've been doing, what reflections we've been going through. First, I would like to say that the RAM as such is a very thorough and very thoughtful instrument. And from that perspective, we think that we would need to work on two different levels. The first one is obvious, to keep implementing it at the domestic level. And at the second level, internationally, we have to keep promoting it because it's important to have a common base of understanding, especially if we are dealing with the features of AI, in this case, the asymmetry with which it impacts on us. So that's the first comment. The second comment is we have found that the RAM is very, very useful for one very simple reason. It is not a closed or prescriptive set of criteria. It is open-ended. And this is very important because that helps us understand the challenge. What I'm trying to say here is that we are in Mexico pondering the challenge that poses the main features of this kind of technology. Some authors have signaled these features as, for instance, it's ubiquitous, it is hyper-evolutive, it is asymmetric, it is highly autonomous. So we need time to reflect on the changes or the impacts that these features really impinge upon our policies. And we need time to think. We are all running, but we need to think first what kind of challenge we have in front of us. From that perspective, it's also very important that the RAM does not answer questions. It raises questions. And in order to keep up with the rapid development of technology, we think that that really is something that we should be stressing of the RAM. It really helps us to think of how to approach the challenge. My third and last comment is, again, we have not implemented yet RAM, though we have heard this morning from my colleague in the Senate, the initiatives that some legislators are taking on board. And these are really a good example of implementation of the RAM and try to find ways to strengthen collaboration. And in that point, well, I'll come back later in order to give you a hint of how we are doing implementing and strengthening our common endeavor with other branches of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I really like your point about it doesn't answer questions, but it raises a lot of questions. And one of the questions, I guess, and coming back to the countries that are almost finished to implement the RAMP, is how you balance out the need for innovation, but at the same time, this desire to control and obviously to regulate as much as possible, putting human rights at the center. And I wanted to start again with Gabon to give me a sense of how you are dealing with this challenge.
It's important to note that whatever we do in our country, we do it with the population and for the population. The population, the people, are the first beneficiaries of any and all policies that we implement, including regarding AI. The use of AI in administration we're taking baby steps in Gabon. We are setting up a vast digitalization program called Gabon Digital, the goal of which is to reduce the lack of access to the internet in order for administration to be more efficient and work with more efficacy. Again, we're taking baby steps, but international collaboration can help us. When you think about protecting the environment, for example, thanks to funding from the EU through a program called ECOFAC 6, and thanks to Gabonese funding, a team of Gabonese researchers and international researchers worked hand in hand with the University of Stirling in Scotland, Epsilon Machine Learning Solutions in Poland, and they set up a software called Monza AI in order to help preserve biodiversity in Central Africa. This software can analyze images within a couple of hours, and it makes it possible for eco-guards to notice any early sign of warning from the animal population and to act quickly when it's needed. So the efficacy of that solution is supported, bolstered by the ability of the software to work with no internet connection. You have to know that Gabon loses about 2 tons of ivory, so that's about 150 elephants per month, because of poaching, because of poachers. So here is a practical example of how AI can help us protect elephant populations and how we can best protect our environment through AI. So overall, Gabon doesn't yet have a formal mechanism dedicated to the implementation of AI solutions, but we do have legal and regulatory solutions that make it possible for us to adopt. For example, we have a set of schemes to protect data, so personal data protection. We work on cybersecurity, and through such acts of law, we can have an overview of what is going to happen with AI. So we have approaches in place already. Regarding, we are trying to support systems that can minimize risks related to or that we have detected through the RAM process. We have identified the same challenges as most of the other countries have. So we know how important it is, for example, to manage autonomy, to make sure that we also have AI solutions that work for our people. We do not want to have solutions that are imposed from outside, from the EU, from other countries as well, that we just are happy to apply. We want to build our own solutions to make sure that these solutions satisfy our population's own need, and so that we can protect our population, because AI can mold the identity of a population. We want to preserve our sovereignty and our safety by creating our own AI solutions. And our biggest challenge in that respect will be not only to build a regulatory framework, but also to work with AI experts. So to train experts and to train the population themselves to make sure that they can use AI, and so that they know about the risks that they are exposed to when they use AI or applications that are often already in mobile phones when you buy the mobile phone, but that come from other countries, including Europe. So there are many challenges for us in terms of national security, in terms of sovereignty, and in terms of ownership and management of our own data. So we have to build a collaborative framework in Central Africa, in the sub-region, and in the region too, in order to better be integrated into what is happening at a global stage. Thank you.
I love this idea of a bottom-up approach to tackle challenges that are specific to different geographies with solutions that are coming from the country. Again, continuing the conversation with the countries that have almost finished to implement the RAM, hearing from Uruguay, whether you're facing similar challenges and whether the approach has been the same.
Yeah, I think the world is facing similar challenges against this new technology, new with, I don't remember how you say it
in brackets.
Yeah, I'm more intelligent in Spanish, but sorry. I think the world entire world is facing some similar problems facing this AI. Because how can we regulate something that we've been using for decades? Our people using AI for decades for the same companies or international companies, big companies, and everybody of us are using every day AI algorithm. So how our governments, how our states have to regulate them. And in Latin America, we don't have even infrastructure that we can deploy AI systems. So it's worst for us. So this kind of summit, this kind of group of people that have been here around the world is very useful for us. The international collaboration is very useful for us, for Latin America, for Uruguay, and for those countries that has not infrastructure to deploy AI. Uruguay is making a great effort to establish synergies and engage its national strategy with instruments, tools, and experience for other organizations and countries within which we can highlight adherence to the recommendation on AI ethics and the application of evaluation of the degree of preparation of the country. And we also carrying out the process of adhering to the principle of the OECD on AI and participating in different mechanisms, regional and global. As an example, we are participating in the AI group of ILAC. This is Digital Agenda of Latin America and Caribbean. The AI group and data governance on the OAS, and the AI working group of the Digital Alliance European Union Latin America. I think the highlight of international collaboration was in the COVID pandemic. And when we learned that if we collaborate internationally, we can achieve way results. For example, in our country, Uruguay was the first country to have European Union COVID passport. And that's why we already have the ADAS personal ID standard. So it was easy with the standards and with the international collaboration. And then I would like to again say that this kind of forum, this kind of summit is very important for us. And with UNESCO, we are going further. Next July, we are get together in Uruguay to establish an AI group for Latin America has one voice, one bigger voice in the international discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Pujols, we heard about this idea of collaboration across countries. Wondering how your country has tackled some of these tensions between innovation and regulation.
I can bring two examples, one national and the second regional. The first one is about our national artificial intelligence strategy, which arises from our national innovation policy, because for us, artificial intelligence in the context of the fourth industrial revolution responds and must respond in these countries to a new engine of development. That is a new industrial policy based on knowledge. What we want is to move from communities that consume technology to industries that produce technology. And it was created, this strategy was created with all the ecosystem. The second example is what we have been doing at the regional level, which was commented by my colleague from Uruguay, thanks to the support of UNESCO and CAF, with the regional working group on AI ethics, which seeks to ensure that Latin America has a voice in this global discussion, and that is why we are advancing in the creation of a regional institutionality through a regional council of AI, where in addition to providing elements for the regulatory governance of these issues in ethics, we also promote the creation of a regional industry based on 4.0 technologies, such as AI, to create the companies of the new economy that will create better jobs and more well-being for our countries. I am convinced that these two examples of co-creation guarantee legitimacy, sustainability, and trust in the public policies that we will promote and implement. Thank you very much.
Excellent examples of collaboration, regional collaboration, obviously turning back to the EU ministers here. Obviously, the EU has done a lot of the grouping work for you. With the act, coming to the finishing line, what are the next milestones in your own countries? And curious also if you could share perhaps some golden nuggets. What have you learned through this process? It's been a process that the world has been watching. Obviously, it's a global first at a European level. Obviously, hoping this will be a significant success. If we can hear from Lithuania and Romania, or what are going to be the next milestones in countries for you?
As for the next steps, each European Union member state needs to comply the requirements of European Union Digital Single Act, and as well as you mentioned, EU AI Act. Lithuania as well will consider the possibility to adopt UNESCO recommendation with the enforcement of the EU AI Act. Our main goal that the regulation would help to avoid the risks associated with the application of artificial intelligence, but on the same time, it should not stop the development of artificial intelligence technologies and the potential of innovation. We also need not to forget that AI is game-changing technology which is developing every day, and that artificial intelligence governance frameworks will also need to evolve and remain somehow in some way flexible. Various preventive measures should be developed, but the principles of fundamental rights protection will remain the same. When it comes to national perspective, a couple months ago, Lithuanian Parliament, the Committee of the Future, established the working group on artificial intelligence, whose mission is to develop and implement a legal framework for artificial intelligence technologies in line with global and European Union standards in the areas of human rights and the rule of law. It is planned that working group will include a wide range of stakeholders, academia, researchers, businesses and civil society. As well, Lithuania has a Lithuanian Artificial Intelligence Association, which consults and assists national institutions in programming artificial intelligence innovation. At this point, it is very essential that adequate and sufficient sources of funding are secured at the European Union level for research and for the establishment of sandboxes. As well, financial incentives for the cross-border projects would be also very, very useful, who's allowing the widest possible exchange of knowledge and the best practices. In addition, the implementation of European Union Artificial Intelligence Act should establish a consultation mechanism to enable EU member states to consult and exchange best practices both with the European Commission and with each other. And new technologies have the potential to foster the development of the creative economy. We need to create policies and programs that would help companies and employees upskill their qualifications to open the new opportunities. And we congratulate approved financial support from the European Union Commission through Horizon Europe program, as well Digital Europe program dedicated to generative artificial intelligence. This package will generate an additional overall public and private investments around 4 billion euros until 2027.
Thank you, Minister. Obviously, similar question for Romania.
Thank you very much. The next step will be the National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence, 2024-2027. We already put the strategy with the governmental decision in the public consultation. We had on the document on the strategy a long public consultation because it's a sensitive subject, and we wanted to have a good debate and to have involved committees of artificial intelligence, local association of city halls or villages, also research research institutes, universities. So we are in the last steps of having this strategy adopted by governmental decision. Also, the next steps will be after we have this strategy to implement our action plan from that strategy. And it's important to mention that we included the UNESCO recommendation in the strategy, and also it's in line with the AI Act. So we waited a little bit after AI Act, but we are ready to implement the educational part of artificial intelligence, having experts formed by universities, bachelor programs, more bachelor programs in artificial intelligence, also in health part, and also we are looking to support SMEs with dedicated programs. Already my colleague from Lithuania said about Digital Europe, Horizon, but also I have in our national plan of recovery and resilience funds for SMEs for digital advanced skills, and in this part more than 2,000 SMEs from Romania will got the opportunity for educational part on artificial intelligence. Also, we are looking to implement in as soon as possible our national platform for interoperability, because as we discussed, the main two factors for artificial intelligence are data sets, and processing power. We are looking to have this national platform for interoperability so we can create new models for artificial intelligence applied in public administration. And I mentioned you the public servant base of artificial intelligence. Actually, we connected our national catalog for public services with this AI model, so we have this kind of results. And also, we are working for creating the AI cloud and also governmental cloud using money from National Recovery and Resilience Plan, more than 560 millions of euro for this national cloud. So for 4 data centers, a lot of GPU and also a lot of processing, conventional processing power for public administration and also for academic institutes. And we are looking to have a strong collaboration with private sector and also with our European partners and our strategic partners, because we are dealing with the same opportunities and also with the same problems. And it's important to have government-to-government collaboration, government-to-business collaboration, and also business-to-business collaboration in this field of artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you really summarize it really well. It's an enormous task, right? Business to business, government to government, involving the academia, involving obviously the people, because essentially these are tools for people. You have a roadmap. You have the AI Act. I mean, for countries, obviously smaller countries, but the Maldives, that don't have exactly that roadmap. How does the challenge translate for you? Is it an even bigger challenge, for example, or you think the scale will allow you to tackle these challenges in a slightly different manner?
Well, I think relative, I think it would remain a challenge of equal importance or equal weightage, I would say. As for the Maldives, I think the areas where we are also looking at is like from the sector which I come from, higher education, looking at employment, higher education, I think with AI, in terms of regularization, it is a key sector that needs to be looked at. But I think more than that, more than setting the regulations for that, what we ought to be looking at is the opportunities that it brings through AI. So for this, again, looking, I think, from a whole different perspective is very, very important. The opportunities AI would bring would mean reshaping the way that education is provided, not just at higher education, but at the school level too. I think as concerns or challenges which often many people whom, for example, generative AIs like GPTs when introduced were about the issues of plagiarism or with regard to data privacy and such issues. While these remain challenges, and I think regulatory frameworks also need to be put in place, but I think it's more important for us to look at embracing the technology that has come in. So I think the initial challenge that remains with us as governments will be, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of adapting technology to the needs that we have, even in terms of providing services, in terms of providing perhaps understanding jobs or making education more inclusive, more needs-oriented, for example. And similarly, on the cases of even environment and other matters that remain on the issues of climate change, on us observing island erosion, the impact that it is going to, the marked sea level rise is having every day on the islands, and how it is going to impact on perhaps agriculture or even just the survival of these islands and the communities within them. Ensuring that through these technologies that we gather enough data, we do proper analysis to facilitate us in setting clear policies or guide us in that direction. So it's all about harnessing, I think, the benefits, the opportunities that exist, and then looking forward to adapting it. So which for us, I think, as I mentioned, a key priority will be addressing on the skills that are required and ways of collaborating with others to gain those skills at the country level.
Thank you, Mr. Shafir. Thank you for, again, bringing back this idea of practicality, right? What it means for your country when it comes to practical adaptation of technology that might help you alleviate risks of coastal erosion or climate change. Going back to, Ambassador, going back to Mexico, what does success then look like for you in the short and medium term?
Thank you very much for the question. As I was saying, it's not that we have not implemented yet certain instruments as RAM. We've been doing our homework in other areas. So let me go briefly again in three very specific comments. First, during the last decade, Mexico has seen a very dynamic evolution of the innovation ecosystems. It's been blooming. And part of the success, or probably the main aspect of the success, is that this process has been bottom up. Now, in order to consolidate this, we need to make our ecosystems more cohesive. So that's the first challenge that we have. We need to finalize our mapping of these ecosystems in order to identify capabilities and, of course, the needs within those ecosystems. And finally, in that area, we would need to strengthen our dialogue and collaboration with private sector, with the scientific and academic community, and of course, within the government. Now, come to the second part, government. Well, we need to take an all-in or all-government-in approach, because it's very easy to say that we have an executive that keeps giving orders, but we need a government whose instances really understand the technological development, what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities. This is very important. And of course, a third element would be, how do we engage with other branches of the state, with the legislative and with the judiciary? Now, and probably this is the most important remark, at least from the Mexican experience. While we are engaging in these dialogues, in this effort to strengthen our collaboration, we must think of the way in which politics are being made, impinged by technology. We need to think or rethink our social contract within the scope of emerging technologies. Because AI, as an emerging technology, will not be only shaping education, it will be shaking everything. And we need to reflect on that. That's, for us, a fundamental step. We need to think the state forwards and not backwards. And we need to do it domestically, of course, and probably we would need to think of the global social contract in that perspective. So I know this is a little bit too conceptual, but to us it's really very, very important. Once we have an idea where we would be heading, then the elements of our strategy would be easier to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. A very good point. And again, if we look at all the countries in the world, it's not exactly that we've done a fantastic job at regulating social media. We're still talking about the harm on youth, on minorities, on we're having obviously half of the world's voting this year, and there's a lot of attention on what's going to happen on those platforms. So I think a good reminder of how we need to move from theory to practice for the sake of our people. I'm going to end from where I started, but I'm going to ask you to do something slightly different. I'm going to ask you to just name an opportunity that you see, obviously with the acceleration of AI technology, a challenge that you see, one of the hurdles that you have encountered in your country, and one piece of advice that you want to give to countries that are perhaps a little bit behind on this journey. So challenge, opportunity, roadblock, and a piece of advice. And we're starting from Gabon again.
For Gabon, we have about 2 million of inhabitants. So AI for us is a huge opportunity because it will create a lot of jobs. It will also help us develop new tools for education, research, innovation. And for us today, it is important to diversify our economy. We are very dependent to mining and quarrying and oil economy, for example. And so for us today, the digital economy using AI would be a very important new pillar and help us diversify an economy, and we will leave this oil dependency. And so this is for us one of the main opportunities that we can identify that is linked to the use of AI. So this is a real challenge. We need experts. We need to develop our own AI solutions. And a piece of advice for other African countries. When it comes to the AI use in the world, we are at the same level as everybody. So internet kind of surprised us. We were consumers of the internet, but for the AI, we are in the same starting blocks. And we will also be able to develop our own solutions. So we won't be consumers only of AIs coming from outside, but we will and we should unite to have one voice, and we have one common bedrock in West Africa. And it is important for us to organize ourselves following the example of Latin America, and we need to defend our own interests, the interest of our people, because behind the AI you have data management, but there are also opportunities when it comes to financial resources, creation of new jobs. And so in Africa we need to come together, speak with one voice, identify our tasks, and we are not late. Nobody is late now. We are all in the same starting blocks, and through collaboration, by sharing best practices and also integrating initiatives like the GPA, for example, we can work together and we will seize those opportunities that are linked to the use of AI. So for us, this is a real opportunity. Of course, there are risks, but together with UNESCO, with their support and getting inspired by what is happening elsewhere, we can take those risks. Every technology comes with risks. And so we need today to seize the opportunities by mitigating the risks. And I think we can do that in a collaborative manner by integrating existing initiatives and by sharing best practices with other countries in the world. Thank you.
Let's continue through this theme. So let's hear from Uruguay when it comes to opportunities, challenges, advice.
Yeah, and
roadblocks.
Yeah. I think that the challenge for the government, at least for my government, is that we cannot stop the evolution of technology, But we have, as states, as governments, to ensure that we are leaving no one behind. I think this is the main challenge for us. And it's a kind of opportunity, because always a new technology is an opportunity. An opportunity if we are able to ensure that we can build capacity and skills to our people. I think that digital citizenship must have AI skills in the future. And an advice, again, I think that we don't have to regulate AI with the pathology as a driver. And I think we have to move quickly, but not fast. And that's it.
Thank you. A last word.
Digital capacities for data, opportunities to improve social rights. We will not be able to do it alone. We will not make it alone. We have to be together and have a regional point of view.
Really a pleasure talking to you, understanding how many commonalities are actually really cross-cutting across the world. It's been a lesson of geography at the same time. I was reflecting on the latest Edelman Trust Barometer, which I religiously follow. It gets presented at Davos every year. And this year, Edelman speaks of a collision of trust, innovation, and politics. And they highlight how half of the world obviously will be voting this year with elections at a time when technology continues to accelerate and making very fast strides, and at a time where trust in government continues to be at an all-time low. And some very worrying remarks that come from the Edelman Trust Barometer is that more than half of the participants worry about societal threats that might be introduced by technology. And they also have the perception that government lack the competence to regulate technology effectively. So I think we heard a lot of plans, a lot of solutions from all the countries here. And I think it is an exciting opportunity to flip this narrative again and to demonstrate that we learn from the mistakes on not being able to regulate social media when the time was right. And maybe this is an exciting opportunity for all the countries, obviously here on stage, but not only for the country here on stage, to really demonstrate that government can lead effectively. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
So thank you very much to the panelists and of course the moderator for impeccable timing. Now it's time to make a family photo of the panelists. And after two panels, we have qualified ourselves for lunch, which is good news. Outside you have great weather. If you walk a little bit, you might be able to see the Slovenia's highest mountain. It's called Triglav, the three-headed big mountain, 2,864 meters high, which is also, let's say, a mythical place for Slovenians. That's why the Slovenian Neanderthals actually drilled three holes into the bare bone some 60,000 years ago to make the first instrument. So enjoy lunch. Please be back by 1400 hours, 2 p.m. for the opening ceremony. During the lunch break, you will also be able to witness the launch of a global AI ethics observatory by UNESCO, which will be presented by Mrs. Gabriela Ramos, the Assistant Director General for Social and Human Sciences at UNESCO, Mr. David Leslie, the Director of Ethics and Responsible Innovation Research at the Alan Turing Institute, and Mr. Reinhard Scholl, Program Chair, AI for Good at the International Telecommunication Union. So, bon appetit, enjoy your meal, dober tek, as we say in Slovenian, and be back by 2 p.m. Thank you very much.